Mr. Hemlock resided in the carcass of a cow. He would return, cold and exhausted, from rambling the wilderness, and crawl into its relative warmth and comfort. Occasionally, people from a nearby town would wander near his home, sometimes venturing very close indeed. On many of these occasions, Mr. H. took glee in wrenching bones inside the carcass, causing it to move. The townspeople would almost always have dispersed by the time his manic laughter ceased, and he wiped the saliva from his chin. There was, however, one instance when interferers did persist. There were a gang of youths, girls mostly, garbed in pink and grey tracksuits, who spouted a broad argot. Instead of the flight of footsteps Mr. H. had anticipated, the yammering grew progressively more intense. They continued shouting despite his frantic puppeteering from inside the desiccated beast. Hollow thuds of thrown stones collided with the flank of the carcass, abruptly chilling his febrile sweat. He had no plan. He lay as still as he could. It was only when a shard of light penetrated his fusty sanctuary, followed by a groping hand, that he lurched into action and tore into the plump flesh with his teeth. The wailing of the wounded led the band of youths to flee. A terrified Mr. H. dragged his cadaver for over a mile, to a fresh site, for he feared that others would come. He awoke peacefully that following morning. He peered outside to witness the dew-damp vegetation, illuminated by pale morning light that filtered through the brush above. In his paranoia, he had relocated to a moist, overgrown depression in the hilly landscape. He was in a pleasant mood, as the sight was completely obscured from the glance of a casual observer, and every moment saw his tracks become that much harder to follow. He had dreamed of the taste of the girl's blood and the tug of her skin between his teeth, the crack of a distal phalanx bone, and the mingling of their blood as the edge of her split fingernail lacerated his gun. He was still somewhat in the throes of this reverie, as he made his way over the lip of the depression, grasping at roots and stems. He was to gather food and possibly some items containing salt and iron oxide in order to relive yesterday's experience. It was amidst this foraging that he came upon an odd sight. A large moose stood at the edge of a small lake, its heavy head lowered. Curiosity won over Mr. H.'s better judgment as he skulked closer to the moose. The beast detected his presence and ponderously raised its head, revealing a small black eye, welling with tears. In a slow, earthy voice the moose spoke. "I am known as the Lacrimoose." After crouching aghast for some time, Mr. H. replied, I am Mr. Hemlock." The Lacrimoose regarded Mr. H. with the vacuum of its eye for some time. Neither of them uttered a word. Mr. H. shifted uncomfortably. The Lacrimoose inhaled deeply and turned its head so that its other eye looked upon Mr. H. It let out a long breath and somberly asked, "Do you wish to take some of my tears?" Mr. H. chewed his lip and asked, "Are they salty?" "Very," the Lacrimoose replied. Mr. H. clasped his hands together and said, In that case, I very much like some of your tears." With a somnolent swaying, the Lacrimoose moved its head closer to Mr. H. Mr. H. extended his trembling hand and collected some fluid on the end of his index finger. He swiftly slunk off, as he needed to find some iron before the teardrop dried. He was in so great a hurry to find an iron object that he nearly limped away from the rusty loop of reinforcement bar that he tripped over. He spotted the red as he glanced over his shoulder and turned back. He fell to his knees in front of the iron bar and plunged his right index finger into his mouth, his eyes rolling back as the sharp tang met his palate. He then began to gnaw at the reinforcement bar, loosening fragments of an outer layer of iron oxide. The state of ecstasy which swept over him then dulled the pain in his mouth to a distant nagging. He lay rocking on the hillside in a fetal posture, completely oblivious to his surroundings. He re-experienced his bony hand close around the wrist of the girl, over what seemed like an entire hour. An age passed as he drew the pink flesh closer to his snarling mouth. The anticipation wavered slightly as he caught the scent of her glitter-imbued nail varnish. At last her flesh met his tongue, slightly clammy with tiny beads of savory sweat. His teeth first sank into her flesh, then tore it slightly, releasing plumes of warm, salty blood. It felt as if he had crushed a million sweet, firm grapes against his palate. Some time after his jaw creaked shut, he felt her arm jolt back reflexively. This effort lacked sufficient strength and only served to further drive his teeth beneath his skin and fat, allowing them to rasp against her bone. The vibrations coursed through him and culminated in an earth-shattering crack of her endmost finger bone. The dizzying aftermath was pierced by the tearing of his gum by her riven fingernail as it withdrew. The mixing of their blood in his mouth washed over him like a post-orgasmic daze. His entire being became quivering and gelatinous. This subsided as time passed. He lay unconscious on the exposed hillside. He was only briefly lucid again, to the searing pain as a police dog tore at his windpipe. All faded to nothing.